Well, it's a threatening sky that hangs over Lake Ontario at the Toronto lakefront. We're just a few hundred yards from the edge of the lake at the Canadian Exhibition Place, ready for the running of the Molson Indy Toronto. And so we're set. We'll take a look up and down the line. The front row on wets, second row sits on wets. I don't see any dry tires back through the front of the field, and I would say that that's a good judgment because you can see there is a sheen to the pavement, and that pavement is just wet enough to, for the moment at least, handle up the rain tire. So we're ready. So they don't come into view of either the crews or the starter until just at the last second. The front three rows look pretty well aligned as they'll head for that curve now, and we do have a green flag. And Michael Andretti runs Sullivan down into the first corner. Mario jumps into third place, then Rahal. And then the Porsche of Fabi, then Rick Mears, then Emerson Fittipaldi.
Michael did take full advantage. He had the better start, did get the jump on Sullivan, and now he has the clear road. There's Cheever.
The rest of the field comes through safely. But Michael has the advantage of clear sailing ahead, and you can see right there, that's exactly what you were talking about, Derek.
That's exactly. Now, second place is Mario. His dad follows him through the second place, so the Andretti family have control right now. Look at Rahal. Rahal running well up to third place, so Sullivan has lost 4 places, and we're not even through the first lap yet.
He was back from Michael to his dad. On board now as Michael leads the lap, perhaps one of the very few clear views that we're going to get, unless the light shower that's moving through here picks up. That doesn't seem to be likely.
Nice clear track, very delicate throttle control, essential, because the turbochargers, when they kick in, they can kick in 700 horsepower on a wet pavement. That is a very difficult proposition for the driver to handle. So delicacy, delicate control, throttle and brakes is what's necessary right now.
What's up there, right?
And it is absolutely essential that that rain light is on. Wally Dolomite will take you off the racetrack if the rain light is not on, because sometimes that's the first thing you see when you come through the spray.
Back on board with Unser Jr. He closes in now on the Fabi machine. Coming right the inside. A braking maneuver here.
That's right. We're not sure. In fact, it's very, very hard. Look at the Marlboro car ahead of him. That looks like Sullivan, maybe Emerson, but these cars try to get away. It is Emerson Fittipaldi. But now Unser Jr. goes to the outside. Emerson's down the inside.
Keep an eye on little Al's right hand and listen to the gear shifts. In fact, we'll just be quiet so you can do that when we come back to an onboard camera, because when they get around this course, they try to be gentle. He doesn't shift all that much.
Michael Greenfield, our first spinner of the day.
Up against the barrier, but it doesn't, you can't really tell if there was any damage to the car. Looks like they just may have been the back end get loose there. Michael now trying to make his way.
Luckily, he has kept the engine running, so in fact, they could just pull him back. I don't know whether he had reverse gear in that. We saw a reverse gear problem at Tony Bettenhausen a couple of races ago. But Michael Greenfield, our first spinner, but no damage.
And you get an idea when you look at the backs of these cars as they move around the corners and watch them kick out, how slick it really is out there. Very difficult driving. Here is Jeff Wood as he closed out on Scott Goodyear. And Goodyear, I think, got on the brakes a little bit early for Jeff's pleasure.
That's right. Jeff was not able to stop. Locked up those rear brakes, had a spin, a harmless spin at the end of that back straight into turn 2.
This is the focus of this crowd because he is Canadian and is from this area here. Good run.
He sees the yellow flag.
One car off the course that got a glimpse of it. You think it was Willie? Yeah, that's what it is.
Willie T. Ribbs. This is the Rayner car. First time here for Willie. And that looks like definitely the end of his day.
He was running 14th. He got the wall with both ends of the car. A lot of damage there. So Ribbs climbs out of the car, runs across the track, and they have vehicles out on the course. That should bring out a full course yellow. I don't expect the kart officials are going to take any chance at all in the wet and try to run them through that area. And we are, in fact, on a full course yellow now. And, of course, out in practice during that, there comes Eddie Cheever through, then Fabi, and then Ari Luyendyk. And one car spins around. That is Lewis. Everybody gets by clean. So, Derek, if you had a chance to practice and actually took it in the lane, let's take a look at this is Randy Lewis's problem.
Down inside Guido Dacco, and it looks as if he put too much power on too soon. Rear wheels led up, and he had a simple 180 spin. Of course, the difficulty is in a street circuit is actually getting back around again to get on your way. We saw Lewis have to come backwards through that corner.
Well, this is the official order of the run right now after 18 laps. In the murkiness there, we saw little Al on board get around one car. That was Mario. He did not get around Michael Andretti. He now runs in second place, chasing Michael Andretti. And one car off to the side, that's Guido Dacco. Looks like he took a slide out to the wall and is back under power once again. Very difficult conditions for these IndyCar drivers. Dacco under power. Michael Andretti still has the advantage of generally running unencumbered. That is to say, no one directly in front of him for any length of time. So he has a fairly clear run, and that works to his advantage.
That's right.
Sort of who guessed right when we were on the grid.
Is there any other reconnaissance weather-wise available? Do you have any inside word on forecasts or what may happen in the next hour?
Some of the private pilots around that are in constant touch with the Toronto airport, and it looks like it's going to stay about like this the rest of the day.
Wish you well. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Ari Luyendyk with a challenge on Emerson Fittipaldi. They have been battling for the past several corners. Now Luyendyk holds off just a bit. This is a battle for 7th place, currently held by Fittipaldi. Let's see, watch this just a little bit further. Here comes Fittipaldi. This is the fastest part of the circuit, up to about 185 miles an hour in this area. Luyendyk moves just a little bit off the line, try and get a clear view. No, he will not challenge Fittipaldi. The fight continues in Toronto. We'll be back with more right after this. Back on the course on board with second place Unser Jr. He continues his chase of Michael Andretti. In memory of the Marlboro Challenge back in Miami in 1988 when these two battled there in the rain, a constantly changing race. Finally won at that time by Michael Andretti, but not after a desperate move on the penultimate lap when little Al tried to come past him, hit a puddle on the course and went head on into the wall. He was uninjured, but it made for one spectacular race. By the way, Ari Luyendyk was able to get past Emerson Fittipaldi and pick up 7th place.
But this is where the action is right now. We're looking back from Michael Andretti's car. We're inside with Unser Jr. The cars seem to be fairly even except under braking. We saw Unser Jr. make up 2 places earlier on in front of the pit straight under braking. At the end of the back straight, he can brake later than Michael. That's where he's making up his time. But unfortunately, he's going to be very close to try and make a pass.
Shelley Unser watches nervously. They keep track of her husband's progress. He's part of the scoring team up in the Galles-Craco pit area. And look at little Al. Is he going to do it here? They come down to the very first turn. No.
Okay,
that's in line.
That's his favorite place right there. We've seen him make 2 spectacular passes earlier on. Oh, look at Michael Andretti get sideways. Has that power on. The rear end breaks away. Now Al Jr. will have a good run down this back straight.
Al Unser Jr. comes to the outside, pulls along Michael Andretti, a fight for the lead. They're side by side. It'll be determined under braking, but there has been trouble here in races in the past. They get through smoothly, and Al Unser Jr. picks up the lead. Nice bit of driving for both drivers.
Al Jr. is so difficult to pass in a situation like that, and we knew his car was good under braking, but Michael is very brave and very difficult to give up the line. But he did. I think it was the correct thing because we still have 2 cars on the racetrack instead of just 1.
Boy, that was wonderful, though, to get out there on the outside and be able to go out there, have the courage to do so. Here is Andretti now.
Now he's in lap traffic, something he has to be very careful of. Here's Jeff Wood. They wave the yellow flag. They need Jeff Wood out of there. Here's back to Mario Andretti. Mario still running a conservative 3rd place at the moment. We haven't seen much of Mario, but he is still running very strongly, but in 3rd place.
So the lead has changed with Al Unser Jr. now in front, being chased by Michael Andretti, then Mario, and Bobby Rahal trying to hold on against Eddie Cheever. We'll be back.
We can see the car just put fresh tires on, so this is a tactical move by Michael Andretti. Now look at this, he's about to lap Rick Mears, so Al Unser Jr. about to lap Rick Mears, who's still running in 10th place right now.
So Al Unser Jr. moves his way up through this field. Rick sits just in front. And because of his positioning now with a great deal of traffic in front of him, he will have to tiptoe his way through this field. You really have to anticipate anticipate what the other driver is doing. And Rick Mears, that he moves past. Rick Mears was running in 14th position and now goes a lap down.
The drivers do have rear view mirrors on these cars, but in such conditions like this, they get wet, they get dirty. It's very, very difficult to see out of those rear view mirrors. So Al Jr. has to make sure that the lap traffic can see him.
Has an even greater advantage, and the other advantage that the Penske organization would seem to have would be that they also have direct telemetry with their cars and can tell a great deal about what the chassis is doing so that they can anticipate a change.
Watching Guido Dacco being passed here by Mario. In fact, Mario tries to slide down the inside. In fact, decided that, no, in fact, the reason he didn't make the pass, it was under a yellow flag situation. That is a regulation. Under yellow flags, you cannot make a pass. So Mario had to back off and wait for Guido Dacco, wait to get through that yellow flag situation.
Guido waits until they're through there, then he moves off the line, lets Mario pass on the inside. This is a Canadian-originated worldwide feed. Sometimes we don't always see exactly what we're looking for here. Obviously, they're giving some attention to the Canadian driver, Scott Goodyear, as he comes up with a very nice move on Rick Mears.
And now Rahal comes up to put a lap on Mears. Now, I wonder what's happened to Cheever. He made a very concerted effort to get down the inside of Rahal about 3 laps earlier, and now he seems to be dropping back a little bit. There's Rahal. Scott Brayton's right behind him, but Cheever has backed off the pace and dropped back a little bit.
Well, Scott Goodyear, with another good run. He's really had an excellent season. You almost always find him moving around 10th place. Right now, he is running in 12th. As he got around Rick Mears, here comes Rahal through. Rahal, of course, is running in 3rd, trying to put the lap on Rick Mears.
Of course, very anxious to get by Rick just as fast as they can, because there's Cheever, there's the man in 4th place. Rahal knows he's made a break. Now he wants to capitalize. Rick moves down the inside, but Rahal just inches down now, tries to make the pass. In fact, does get by around the outside.
So Rahal finally gets around Rick Mears, and we look up in the right-hand corner of the screen. There you see Eddie Cheever. So for the moment, this battle is off, as is the fight for the lead. So we're static at the front of this field. We'll be back with more from the Toronto Molson Indy right after this.
But interestingly enough, very few people went out to try it. Only 8 or 9 cars went out. Perhaps everybody should have gone out because they hoped for dry conditions, not wet.
And Eddie Cheever now once again closes in on Rahal, and Cheever is right there, pulls alongside. And boy, just that quickly, Eddie Cheever is able to get past. But Rahal comes over to the inside. He is able to close down on Cheever, but Cheever, once he got past Rahal, that was a spectacular move.
Rahal is in trouble. There is something wrong with that car. Look at Mario come up the inside, or is that Michael? That is Michael. Michael who's catching Cheever. Rahal is in trouble. We don't know what it is yet, but he's way off the pace. I would say he's headed right for his pit.
We'll keep an eye on Bobby Rahal. Remember, a year ago at the Meadowlands, Rahal won in the rain, so he can be very good there. But right now, he is fighting a problem, I'm sure, on that machine, as both Cheever and then Michael Andretti coming up through the field came past, Eric.
Now we're inside.
Watch this. He may have brushed, absolutely, he brushed the wall there. I didn't notice that first time by, but when his head snapped over there, that explains the situation. The Rahal crew, by the way, is ready for him to come into the pits. He rolls in now.
In fact, I believe, yes, you can see that front suspension is bent. Look at that wishbone right behind that rear view mirror. The wishbone is bent, so I think Rahal's day is done. They can't change it, but it would take way too long.
Lynn St. James is right there.
They're changing the rear tires, but the right rear wishbone is definitely bent, the lower wishbone.
So they're
putting a rear tire back on it. I can't, yeah, they're out. They're out. I was going to say, I can't believe they put the car out on the racetrack that way, but it's bent. Alan, the crew chief, has done the engine cut, and they're taking Bobby out. Paul, back to you. Bobby's getting out of the car right now.
Bobby Rahal climbs out of the car. We were so intent on trying to find what his tack was doing. Pay attention to that. And he did tag the wall and tagged it good. And when it does that, he's bent both front and rear. That ends Bobby Rahal's day. That's not repairable. We mentioned it. Dials in around Cheever. That yellow line. They can get 2 wheels over that line. And look at this.
Teo Fabi got it all wrong, and we saw how close the confines of these racetracks are. He's not able to turn the car around. He actually had to drive back against the flow of traffic to get his car pointing the right way to get on his way.
Very carefully, Teo Fabi gets back into the action. So Eddie Cheever has made a stop. What will the leaders of this race do? We'll be back in a moment to find out.
They get all of the fuel in, and they're going to be able to get probably the full 38 gallons of fuel that they need to get in this 40-gallon cell. Even though they're getting much improved fuel economy, they want to make sure they still get it all in. 13.2 second stop. Absolutely an excellent stop. Everybody just seemed to be in slow motion, but orchestrated very well. Everybody's congratulating everybody in the pit. They needed this one.
Stop at 14.2, and Mario Andretti comes by, picking up the lead of the race from Al Unser Jr. So little Al falls to second, but of course Mario scheduled to stop yet.
Al Unser Jr.'s pit stop gives you an idea how happy, look at that spray, how happy he is with the handling of that car. Made no adjustments, did not even change tires. He is so happy with that car.
In Toronto, Mario Andretti, the leader of the race, rolls down toward the pits. On lap 53, Lynn St. James is there.
The crew has told Mario to be very careful because it's very slick, but I think this world champion knows that. He's on the radio with Tony Cacciali. They are going to make no tires. They're going to put fuel in, and they put more front wing in to get a little more front bite in the downforce in the front. Beyond that, there will be no other changes made to the car.
15.2
second stop. They got all of the fuel in. Probably can now make this one stop only and go the distance with this kind of weather.
Back in the relative smaller size of the cars. In fact, Eric Walker at Porsche freely admitted that for the number 4 car there of Teo Fabi and John Andretti, the car was literally designed around him. Emerson Fittipaldi up against the wall. He slid off just a second ago, and Fittipaldi was running in 10th at the time of that incident. Here it is as we take a look at it, Derek Daly.
Here's a slow motion. It's under braking, the end of the straight. Just right there, he gets offline, locks those brakes. Look at those front brakes locked up, and bang, into the wall. Breaks that left front suspension.
Heavy damage to the left front of that car. That ends Emerson Fittipaldi's day. A tough year for the defending PPG IndyCar world champion. Flash of fuel and make it out that he would be able to get the stop done and get the lead. Here's Lynn St. James.
Defending champion overshot his pit. Michael overshot his pit a bit to be able to get the fuel in. They're adding fuel only, no tire change. So it'll be fuel only. It's running at 2.5 gallons per second. 16.2 second stop. And he overshot that with a critical loss of time. I hope
15.2 seconds in and out. Now you saw what we were talking about. They calculated the flow of the fuel in the hose, and when they had that fuel run, one of the crew members reached out with a stick and tapped the refueler on the back so that they could back out of it.
Remember.
And Mario Andretti spins it quickly off the course, taps the wall. Derek Daly.
Here's the replay. This is where we've seen all the action earlier on today. Under braking, he turns in. He's on the right line right here. But now the car gets loose. Now it begins to get loose. Look at that car come around. Maybe a bit too much power on. And he backs it into the wall. He actually breaks that rear wing. Backing into the wall. Watch that rear wing. Just there breaks the rear wing.
Boy, it was at a point in which he certainly didn't want to get the back in the wall and did everything he could to keep it away. Alan.
they're only going to add fuel, no other adjustment. Everyone is watching very carefully to make sure they get just enough fuel and not an unnecessary amount. 9.7 second stop.
So fuel only for Al Unser Jr. Remember, that is the crew that was involved in the fire at Cleveland. They are all back in action. In fact, they were back in action a week ago. So Al Unser Jr. makes his stop in and out of the pits. We'll be back with more right after this. We're back at Toronto. Ari Luyendyk tangling with Rahal Boesel, both of them up toward the wall. And Luyendyk trying to signal someone to give him a start. Al Unser Jr., the leader of the race after his pit stops, moves up and around the accident. Luyendyk was running in 3rd place. Boesel was running in 7th at the time they tangled.
coming through turn 9, Boesel lost it right in front of Luyendyk. Luyendyk tried to go around the outside, and Boesel backed into him and took Luyendyk straight into the wall.
Well, with his stop, Al Unser Jr. was able to keep the lead. Michael Andretti is in second place. Eddie Cheever runs in third. Luyendyk was up in the top position, but of course is falling steadily backwards as the rest of the field strings their way past. And Danny Sullivan has managed to move up into fourth place. Randy Lewis, he's just one lane to go. Now Mario Andretti, after his contact, took it into the pits. It looked, Eric, like all they did was shake the rear wing and make sure it was stable and send him back out.
They did. They had a good look at the mounting points, realized that it wasn't broken, or they hoped it wasn't broken. They decided to risk it to send him back out without a rear wing change. However, the wing is damaged.
We're back at Toronto. This is one of the kart officials, Billy Camphausen, who has been communicating back and forth on both his radio to other officials. Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward, he just tried to use one of the hardwire landlines that are here, and he has been in the Gallus pits talking with the Gallus team, and Nick Finoro, the starter, at the starter stand. You see he's got the white flag. In this case, it would indicate one more lap to go, and he gives it to the leader of the race. They're going to flag this one early. Lap 91 is complete for Al Unser Jr. Michael Andretti is in no position to contest him at this point, nor for that matter would he have necessarily been going to the end of the race. So the flag goes out, the white flag for Al Unser Jr. Michael Andretti runs in second place.
The rain is coming down much, much heavier. There is standing water now on the racetrack, and the visibility is way, way too low for this to continue as a safe situation.
Al Unser Jr. working his way now around on the final lap of this race. White flag comes out for Al and for the rest of the field. They will be bringing this race to a stop 9 laps early. Michael Andretti was not in a view to contest that position. John Andretti lies just ahead of Michael on the course itself. And so I think very wisely, as the visibility continued to fall here and water began to pool in some sections, the officials talked with the teams and they decided it was prudent to flag just a little bit early. Terrible visibility you see from the onboard camera. Now moving through the final corners, Al Unser Jr. working his way around and sees the checkered flag ahead, and Al Unser Jr. has won here in Toronto. Al Unser Jr. scores the win. Second place will be Michael Andretti as they decide the rain is just too much and they will bring the race to a halt early.
It really was a good decision because there was nothing to be gained, we could see. The race had settled down. Al Unser Jr. was very solidly in that lead position. Eddie Cheever just came through and put his hand in the air. Danny Sullivan just came through. Danny Sullivan in fourth place. Cheever delighted with his third place position. And Michael Andretti finishes second.
The race is run and Al Unser Jr. picks up the win. Continues on a very solid year for him in what has been a very difficult race through the afternoon. It was a light sprinkle when it started, but enough of a race in the rain.